If you're over 40 and still trying to lose weight by optimizing everything, stop. That's probably the problem. If you're smart, disciplined, successful, and your weight keeps hovering 15 or 20 pounds higher than it used to, it's not because you don't know enough. It's because you're trying to solve this like an engineering problem. And after 40, that backfires. Recovery drops, sleep gets lighter, stress compounds, and cholesterol creeps up. And instead of simplifying, we double down. More tracking, more macro tweaking, more research, more perfect plans. And somehow we stay stuck. I know this because I've lost and gained 30 pounds over the last 2 decades. I'm 47 now. This time I'm cutting with my LDL under 80. I have steady energy, no extreme diet, and my mood is better. And what changed wasn't more information. It was realizing that intelligent people systematically overcomplicate fat loss after 40. Quick proof. I'm 47. After my daughter was born, I went from my highest weight ever of 202 pounds down to 173 with some simple calorie balancing averages. I also got my LDL cholesterol down to 80, the lowest it's ever been. And I've done this twice, and it was all based on what I chose to eat in the simplest pattern, not overcomplicating. Um, the problems came into when I turned fat loss into a puzzle. I thought smarter equals better. So I kept adjusting my calories. What is the best average number to hit every week? And can I have high weeks and low weeks and so on and so forth? I looked at my macros constantly. Was I eating too much fat? Was my fat percentage by calories too high? I played around with fasting windows. I did 1 meal a day. I did 2 meals a day. I played around with trying to use workouts to lower my calories and lower my averages so I could get there faster. And every time I weighed myself and I saw plateaus happening, I thought it was a system error. I just needed to go back and make some adjustments and get everything working again. But the problem was I was always tweaking. I was rarely repeating the same plan long enough to really see long-term actions. And I didn't really let anything kind of settle and really get going. I was confusing all this work with making progress, and working in spreadsheets and macros is not going to help you to see that downward trend like you saw in my graph earlier when I finally kind of figured this stuff out. So what I mistook was learning for doing. It's fun for me to do these things. I'm an engineer. And so looking at studies and listening to podcasts while driving, to and fro work, looking at different tracking tools like continuous glucose monitors and things of that nature that I can play with. And maybe they'll help speed things up. Or maybe if I start taking inulin in the morning, it'll, naturally release GLP-1. There's all these kind of things that I was constantly learning because I'm a learner. I like to learn stuff. And it feels like I'm progressing when I'm learning, but it felt serious, but it's none of that. It didn't help me lower my calories to learn more tricks. It didn't help me improve my sleep, and it didn't make any anxiety less from normal work life. It felt productive, but it wasn't. So after 40, my energy is a lot more limited than it's been in the past. And you just have to kind of dial things in and keep it simpler. You need a simple, easy plan to repeat over and over again to see that downward trend. It's what worked for me in the past, what worked for me this most recent time. So, and also these plans that I would come up with, I was always trying to tweak them to match my life when I should have kind of just met them more in the middle, kept it simple, and just stuck to something simple I could remember. On paper, I would tweak how many workouts I did and how intense they would be and what kind of things that would be involved with them and how much hiking mileage wise or how much biking mileage wise I needed to do. I was constantly tweaking with my fat percentage macros, not so much my protein. Maybe that's my fault, but I learned that trying to highlight one macro doesn't necessarily win the game, at least for me. I worked on all these early morning rituals, didn't really help out too much. Tried to eliminate junk food. I could never really say no long enough for that to make a strong effect. Every time I've lost weight, like junk food has always been a partner in crime. It's always been there with me. Every time I try and get rid of it, I just stall or go up, because in reality, with all these plans, the harder they are, the more rigid. When your kid gets sick, when you can't sleep the night for a variety of reasons, because the dog wakes you up at 3 a.m. to go pee itself, and then you can't get back to sleep. When work stress comes in, it changes big projects, angry clients, so on and so forth. Or the big one really is I'd be on a roll and then I would have to go visit family, and I wouldn't be able to do anything over there to control my calories the way I normally did. It would just all kind of collapse. And then the problem is how fast would I get back to it? So the smarter the plan looked, with all the thinking and the tweaking, usually it made it more rigid and it broke a lot easier. I didn't need a better optimized plan. I just needed something that could survive 4 hours of sleep or less, really three, or travel, and these kind of things that come at us all the time. So, and I would weigh myself daily. And like everybody, if the weight was flat or if I had a big jump, sometimes I would panic and then I would analyze all my Fitness Pal logs again and try and tweak it and find where the problem was and so on and so forth. And the problem was always generally the same. And if I had a flat week, same thing. I would need to come up with a new strategy so I could start moving down faster and faster. So, but after 40 jumps, I mean, really anytime jumps are super common. Like water weight is a real thing and it shifts for all kinds of reasons, too many to know to bring up in this video, and it's not important. And it's mostly, for me at least, sodium. Usually, like going out to eat, having more like higher sodium foods, even like healthy stuff like Chipotle, and I wouldn't be surprised if I gained weight. And even if it was a lot more fiber that binds to water, I gain weight. But it's not real weight. It's not fat. It's just water flopping all over the place. So, you know, micromanaging this, it killed what was more important, which was just staying consistent with a plan. So the real solution here for me was trying to become happy with boredom. And in this instance, the most recent one where I was trying to work on my weight and my cholesterol at the same time, really getting that fiber up there above 30, but trying to get to an average of 50 grams of fiber a day. That's when I found magic for cholesterol, but also helping me with fullness and like helping me stick to my plans a little bit better. I made it easier to count basically because I would worry about getting that fiber in. And then usually by then there wasn't much more to add to it. Protein at meals, I generally, with the way I eat, if you try and maximize fiber, you're going to also accidentally like start bumping up your protein a lot, because the easiest fiber maximizer is beans, and beans come with the fiber, but they also come with a lot of protein. It's not just starch. It's like supercharged starch. I do a lot of walks before, after dinner. It's a great time to give the dog some exercise if I can, or I'll just walk to work and walk back. I started adding in a lot of that kind of stuff. And I got really consistent with bedtime and it's almost easier in some ways with that, at least to go to bed with the baby, because she goes to bed at 7, I go to bed at 9. And when we wake up in the middle of the night is always changing, but at least we can have that consistent like bedtime start. And so that helped out with that. And I had no alcohol, so that was not a problem. But I've done this before where I've quit alcohol in the past and everyone was like, you're going to lose so much weight. And I lost nothing. Alcohol has never been like a gainer for me or a loser. Like it just doesn't really do anything either way. So the boring stuff is what works. And the harder part of all of this is how to be happy with a boring plan, really. So what I do now is pretty simple. Same breakfast and lunch most days, a lot of times the same dinner, especially when I'm solo. I try and save my fun junk meals and stuff for going out with friends or going out with family. You know, I do a little bit of lifting while my daughter plays at the park. At least that's the plan. My lifting schedule is not a big part of any of my weight loss right now. It's really about sticking to boring breakfast and lunch and tracking like things when I'm not exactly following my typical breakfast and lunch, and walking as much as possible. And a lot of these things are trying to do double duty. Like double duty with lifting in the park is I get maybe I can do some pull-up sets to failure on the playground equipment while my daughter is having fun. And then we do that together. And the majority of the time is just spent playing and following and safety. And a little bit of time is spent doing those lifts. Same thing with like walks. Like walks not only help with me and my calories, but they also help with, I'm older. It makes me less winded going up and down the stairs, actually, to focus on walking to try and balance my calories. Like I probably get a lot more out of it for just aerobic health and being able to not get winded than I do for it helping me keep my calorie averages. But still, counting calories, to be honest, is one of the big things that I do. And it's not so much counting, it's about keeping these breakfasts and lunches and like these meals that I like that have like a set 600 calories and a set amount of fiber that I just repeat over and over again. So I don't really have to very actively count once I have these things set up. I try and check my LDL. I definitely check it at least once a year, sometimes twice, and that keeps me from drifting. And if I notice that it's drifting, then maybe I'll actually count my fiber for a little while to make sure it's high enough, because that will tend to drift downwards if I don't keep to my meals or if I eat out too much. And I don't panic. Like, whenever these things happen, I just go back to the boring stuff, which is like meals on repeat, counting a little bit if my fiber gets out of whack, and doing as much walking as I can. Really simple stuff. Um, and I've done this multiple times. Why it gets harder after 40. At 25, in theory, you can outtrain bad sleep. You can survive extremes. I don't know. The 29 was the first time I lost a lot of weight, and I remember it being like super duper easy. But I was also super duper boring. All I did was count calories, and I counted every single thing that I ate, like every nibble or what have you not. And for some people, that's not easy, but for me, it was, and that's all I did, and I lost a ton of weight. I did it again in my 30s, and I did it again in the 40s, but I'm noticing now, like, it's a little bit harder to not have those junk food breaks when you're stressed out. I've noticed my recovery is like, if I try and walk too much to lose weight, it'll come back to bite me. I'll start getting tweaks in my knees because I've broken my leg before, and it's not as easy to do kind of like heavier workouts for me personally to add into a weight loss thing. It just, if I work out too much, it just ruins it. But I can always eat boring. Eating boring has been kind of like the secret easiest thing to do. So, if I started over again, eat the same breakfast, eat the same lunch, stay busy, stop changing the plan, same dinner most days, ignore debates that I find online. And if I'm do them, set the right mindset that it's just for fun to check out, to watch, not to engage in. And that's pretty much what I'm doing. Like, if you want to join me, you can pick up like some of the dinners and lunches and breakfasts that I like, that are high fiber and super filling, and like that 500 to 600 calorie range. You can get them here at this link, or you can use this QR code. It's totally free. These are just the ones that work for me. I basically took other people's recipes, like my mom's steel cut oats, and tweaked it a little bit to add more fiber through chia seeds, little things like that work for my goals. But yeah, you can grab it here, and that's it. So, foundation, keep it boring, keep it simple, and I will see you in the next one. So, and here's that thing in case you need it again. Next time.